Hello and welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with the Disability Policy for All. Today I have the great fortune to be talking to Shea Tanis, who is the Associate Director of the Coleman Institute in Colorado. So welcome, Shea.
Thank you, Liz, for having me. I'm honored to be here with you.
Today we will be talking to her about technology and the Declaration of Technology that they came out with. It called the Declaration of Information and Technology. The first question is, what is the Coleman Institute, and why do you think the Institute think? Why did the Institute think a declaration of the use of technology for people with intellectual disability is important?
Well, let me tell you about the Coleman Institute. So the Coleman Institute, the purpose of the Coleman Institute is to catalyze and integrate advances in technology to promote quality of life for people with cognitive disabilities and their families. The second question, part of that question, you said, why did we develop the Declaration on the rights of people with cognitive disabilities to technology and information access? Well, since our inception in 2001, we've been looking at the technology and really have had along the way come to the recognition that we were at this tipping point at which if we didn't engage meaningfully the community and really take some concerted efforts to ensure the rights, we were going to be left at this tipping point where people could no longer return and be engaged meaningfully in their community because they had a lack of access to these technologies that are so pervasive, those that are everywhere. So, for example, we're using the technology now to do this interview and do Tuesdays with Liz. So we really came to this point where we thought in 2010, how can we address this? And we made a parallel between the rights of students with intellectual disabilities to education in 1971 to a parallel of the right to those individuals with cognitive disabilities to technology, showing that it was a similar right, that there needed to be a recognition of the access to folks. So we thought that it was time to really establish a statement. And so the goal of the final document was really to stimulate greater attention nationally and worldwide to the possibilities at hand for people with cognitive disabilities through technology and information, while simultaneously.
How will it help people with disabilities?
Sure, thank you for asking that question. We've kind of considered this a three-pronged approach. So through the implementation and advocacy around the Declaration, which we call it the Declaration for short, because the rights of people with cognitive disabilities to technology and information access becomes long in discussion. So we call it the Declaration. We thought there were three prongs to this. One, we wanted to bring about advocacy within the cognitive disability community to no longer be complacent in the recognition that this technology is being developed all around them and yet they don't have access. We're not at a point now where we can be complacent with that. We need to be really strong advocates in order to have the voice at the table of this community. So we thought it would help in that first aspect in terms of raising awareness about this right to technology. Secondly, we wanted to drive industry and private corporations to address accessibility and to recognize the cognitive disability community as a consumer market and understand the impact that disability has in all the design and product services that they produce. So we wanted to stimulate some of the changes in culture in industry. And then third, we really wanted to increase digital literacy, education around digital literacy, and use of technology for the community. So There's a large cohort of individuals who don't have access to technology, not only because financial or physical, but also awareness of how to utilize that technology. So we want to empower people to have the education, to self-direct how they use technology, and instead of having technology be a passive agent in which they use it and just watching movies, becoming actively engaged and empowered by technology to let the technology work for them. And so we want to increase some of the education and opportunities for this population who hasn't had that opportunity through school, through K through 12, through higher ed, to be able to learn about how to utilize technology.
Thank you. What kind of policies will have to be in place to comply with the Declaration?
That's a good question. You know, the Declaration itself is a statement of principles. And so the statement of principles need to be adopted in a fashion that policies and procedures comply. So we've had, I would say, three really good examples of external policy-driven entities that have utilized and embraced the Declaration. So last year, the President's Committee on People with Intellectual Disabilities report, the PCPID report, included the Declaration in their report to the President, the Leveling the Playing Field for Improving Technology Access and Designing for People with Intellectual Disabilities. And I know you had them on your show as well. So they embraced the Declaration. They used it as a mechanism to support some of the outlined recommendations they had. We also just recently had at our conference here at the Coleman Institute, the Federal Communications Commission, who took the Declaration, embraced it, and then used it again to say we support these principles in creating a white paper, which they produced and released on October 6th at our conference, that stated that these are principles in which those in the communications industry can use as promising practices, but also adopting the principles in the Declaration. And then we also had the following day, we always do a partnership with Anchor, which is Community Resources Partners. They help with provider agencies, and they came out with a policy statement that included the Declaration principles within it. So they made their own policy statement inclusive of the principles. So those are examples of how the Declaration has been used. But when you're looking at federal, you can look at policies in two different ways. You can look at federal policies, and then you can also look at organizational policies. So,
is there anything else that you would like to talk about around technology?
Well, I always want to talk about a whole bunch around technology, but I think in this context, you know, for your viewers, certainly the most important thing is to recognize that, you know, the cognitive disability group or our community has not really been at the table for technology. Those with sensory disabilities have really been the stronghold advocates who have been promoting that access for many, many years. For us, this is really a new area. And so we're really pulling on as many people to get as knowledgeable as they can around technology so we truly can have a voice at the table, because it is new. People ask us, they say, you know, what's the research in cognitive disabilities? Where are the consumers? And we constantly are looking to folks to say, yes, this is a great consumer base. They have so many insights to share with you. But yet we need to get people to the table, and we need to get people to recognize that, yes, this is a right. You do have a right to be able to use all of these products and services that you see others using in your community. And so don't be complacent. Just know that you have that right and be vocal about that, because the more we bring people to the table, the more we can have some impact in seeing true access for just not one community, but the entire disability community. So I encourage your viewers to get involved in spreading the word and, you know, looking at what their rights are so they can be able to be knowledgeable participants in all aspects of technology as it consumes our way of being. So that would be my
last. When you said about conflation. Can you just define that
Yeah, I can. I can use my own familial experience. I have a brother with significant traumatic brain injury, and there's the expectation that he shouldn't use technology. Why would he doesn't need to use technology? He shouldn't have to have access to it. It's okay that he doesn't have access. And what I'm saying is that's not okay. It's not okay for him not to be able to use the iPhone that he wants to use. It's not okay that he can use a computer. And I think we've gotten very comfortable with saying that is okay. And complacency, meaning that we are fine to just let it be. But really, when you look around and you see everybody using all types of technology, we have to be involved in that conversation, and everybody should be able to use all of those.
And I think it's really neat that we're talking about technology, and this is an interview using technology. So thank you. If you have any questions about this or any other policy issues, please go to the AUCG webpage and look for this week's in brief. And if you have any questions or comments about this week's Tips with Liz, please leave them in the space below. Thank you and have a nice day. Thanks again, Shea. Bye.
Thank you, Liz.
Bye.